Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something a little different.
Oh, lay it on me.
It's a YouTube video, actually, titled Unity is Key, Jan van Riebeeck, Africans. Even the title is like, whoa.
Intriguing, for sure. Where are we headed with this one?
Well, the video features a speaker, not named in the transcript we have, but they're sharing their perspective on the history and identity of South Africa's colored people, specifically those with roots in the Cape region.
Okay, I'm listening. The Cape region has such a rich, but also troubled past.
Exactly. And what struck me is how this speaker blends historical figures like Jan van Riebeeck with personal stories and this, burning call for unity.
Powerful combination. It's often those personal stories that make these larger historical narratives resonate.
Totally. And they keep coming back to Jan van Riebeeck. You know, the guy who established that first European settlement in South Africa way back in the 17th century.
Right. 1652 to be exact.
You know your stuff. See, they link Van Riebeeck directly to the Khoikhoi people. They even say the Khoikhoi's blood runs through today's colored population.
Interesting. For our listeners who may not know, the Khoikhoi were indigenous pastoralist communities, lived in southern Africa long before any Europeans showed up.
And get this, the speaker uses the Afrikaans word khoi, sounds like it comes from Khoikhoi, to refer to their community in the present day.
Language is so fascinating, right? The way it evolves and gets reshaped over time to reflect changing identities.
Absolutely. Speaks volumes about this layered history, this cultural blend that shaped this community. The speaker emphasizes this mixed heritage a lot, mentions European groups like Japanese, Italians, French, Germans, all present in that early Cape colony.
All interacting with the Khoikhoi women, it seems.
Right, they don't shy away from that. It's sensitive, obviously, but it points to the power dynamics back then, and how these interracial relationships, maybe even forced in many cases, played a big role in how colored identity developed.
A complex and sensitive part of the story, for sure.
For sure. And this leads to how the speaker talks about the labels their community has carried. They describe a shift from being called colored to being categorized as black during the apartheid era.
Ah, yes. That shift likely evoked a whole range of emotions, I'd imagine.
They seem to have mixed feelings about it. Comfortable with colored at first, but then this discomfort with black later on. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, this struggle with labels reflects a bigger debate happening within South Africa about identity, about belonging, especially under apartheid, which enforced such rigid racial classifications. They often didn't capture the nuances of a person's actual heritage or how they saw themselves.
Makes you think about how those imposed labels can really miss the mark. Almost like this speaker is searching for a way to define themselves outside of those categories, to define themselves on their own terms.
Definitely. And it seems like this yearning for self-definition is tied to that passionate call for unity we mentioned, and to their desire to return to their roots, literally. They make a strong connection between owning land, language, and cultural identity. Talk about reclaiming land and building kraals.
Kraals. Fill us in. What are those?
So a kraal is a traditional African homestead, often enclosed by a fence made from natural materials. It's like, in the speaker's mind, reclaiming land and building kraals goes beyond just owning property. It's about reviving their heritage, creating a space where their culture can thrive.
It's about a tangible link to their past, to their ancestors. They even say they're prepared to die for this cause.
Wow, that shows just how deep this commitment runs. They're willing to risk everything for the chance to rebuild their community, to reclaim their identity.
Really powerful stuff.
Oh.
And then they bring in this story, a personal one, about a fire that destroyed their own kraal. And they decided to forgive the person responsible.
Forgiveness in the face of such a loss, that's profound.
It is. Reveals a lot about their character, and it brings this deeply personal element into this broader discussion about history and politics. It also makes you wonder about this leader they keep referencing. Sounds like they work closely together on all these initiatives. They even mentioned a meeting at the castle, that historical landmark in Cape Town.
Suggests a level of organization, maybe even influence within the community. This leader seems like more than just a casual acquaintance. What do you think we can glean from the speaker's words about their dynamic?
Yeah, what kind of relationship do you think they have based on what we've heard so far?
Well, the way the speaker talks about them, especially when discussing those plans for the land, building kraals, it seems like this leader plays a really significant role in their life, maybe even like a mentor, almost a guiding force, it sounds like, helping them turn this vision into something real.
Right. And remember, that story about the fire. The speaker mentions being at the castle, in a meeting with the leader, when it happened.
Oh, right, right. Adds another layer to their connection, doesn't it? Almost like they're both so engrossed in their work, in their mission.
And the speaker, being away from their kraal when it burned down, maybe seeking the leader's guidance at that very moment, it deepens the bond.
It does make you think, what kind of relationship is this exactly? A mentor-student thing, a deep friendship forged in shared hardship, or, maybe a bit of both.
And all fueled by this shared vision, this idea of self-sufficiency, of cultural preservation, rooted in the land itself.
Exactly. It goes beyond just land ownership, right? It's about reclaiming a way of life.
And they're prepared to die for it, remember. That's not a statement made lightly.
Definitely not. That level of commitment, it's extraordinary. It speaks to the depth of their belief in this mission, their willingness to risk everything for their community.
It's inspiring, honestly. And it brings us back to this whole idea of label colored. The speaker seemed comfortable with it at first, then expressed some real discontent when it shifted to being categorized as black during apartheid.
Right, right. It highlights the limitations of those labels, especially when imposed from the outside. This speaker clearly identifies with a specific heritage, one that encompasses both indigenous African and European influences.
And being lumped into that broader black category during apartheid, it's almost like an erasure of their unique history. Like you're being forced into a box that doesn't quite fit.
Exactly. They're looking for a space to exist beyond those labels, to embrace the complexity of their heritage. And it seems like this pursuit of land, this establishment of kraals, is central to that.
It's about creating a physical space, a cultural space, where they can define themselves, free from those constraints of external categorization.
Absolutely. They even say, and I'm quoting here, a nation without a language is not a nation. A nation without a culture is not a nation. A nation without identity is not a nation. Powerful stuff.
It is. It gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? The importance of language, of culture, of identity in defining a people. This isn't just about land. It's about reclaiming their narrative, their history, their very essence.
And it connects to another key theme here, unity. The speaker keeps coming back to this, urging their community to stand together.
Right. Unity is strength, that kind of thing. But that emphasis on unity also suggests there might be challenges. Internal divisions, maybe. People who are skeptical of this whole vision.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Overcoming those internal hurdles, presenting a united front, that seems critical to actually making this happen.
It does. Their vision goes beyond reclaiming land and building kraals, though. Right. They talk about raising their children in these spaces, teaching them in their own language, even establishing schools within these kraals to pass on their traditions.
It's like creating this parallel system, a space where their culture can flourish outside of the dominant structures. Pretty radical when you think about it.
It really is. It raises questions about what it even means to belong in a society that often demands conformity.
And it makes you wonder, can they fully embrace their heritage, truly reclaim their roots without challenging those existing power structures?
Without challenging the systems that have historically marginalized them.
Exactly. That's a big question, not one with an easy answer. But this speaker's story, it pushes us to think about it, to consider this delicate balance between preserving cultural heritage and navigating the realities of a diverse, always changing society.
It's a reminder that these issues are complex. There are no easy solutions. But hearing this speaker's perspective, it's incredibly valuable.
It is. It highlights that deep yearning for belonging, that desire to connect with something larger than yourself, something that resonates across cultures and throughout history. It makes you wonder, is this vision, this dream of returning to their roots, is it truly possible? Can they really create this separate space, this parallel system within modern-day South Africa?
It's a huge question, right? On the one hand, you have this incredibly strong desire to reclaim their heritage, to build those kraals, to live according to their traditions. But on the other hand, they're part of a complex society.
And it makes you think, can you really insulate yourself from those outside influences, from the dominant culture?
It's that age-old question, isn't it? How do you preserve your own identity while also being part of a larger, more diverse world?
Exactly. And it brings us back to those constant references to Jan van Riebeeck, this Dutch colonial figure who looms large in their narrative.
It's like he's a symbol, right?
Yeah.
Of their mixed heritage, but also of the forces that disrupted their ancestors' way of life.
It's a complex relationship with the past. They recognize the injustices, the displacement, the cultural disruption that came with colonialism, but they also acknowledge that their own identity is a product of that history, a blend of indigenous and European influences.
And it's a reminder that history is rarely black and white. It's messy, it's full of contradictions. and the speaker seems to be wrestling with those contradictions.
Trying to find a way forward that honors their heritage while acknowledging the complexities of their past. And that's where this vision of reclaiming land, of building kraals, comes in.
It's about taking control,
Right.
Defining their own identity, not letting others define it for them.
Absolutely. It's about self-determination, about shaping their own future. And a key part of that is ensuring the continuity of their culture, passing on their traditions to the next generation.
Which brings us back to the importance of language. They talk about establishing schools within those kraals, educating their children in their own language.
It's about preserving that connection to their heritage, to their ancestors, because language carries so much more than just words. It carries culture, history, identity.
This has been an incredibly thought-provoking deep dive. We've explored history, identity, the power of culture, but more than that, I think we've gained a deeper understanding of the human desire to belong, to connect with something larger than ourselves.
And to have a voice, to tell your own story. It's a reminder that these issues, these questions of identity and belonging, they're not just confined to one place or one community, they're universal.
And in an increasingly interconnected world, it's more important than ever to listen to these stories, to understand different perspectives, to celebrate our shared humanity while recognizing the richness of our differences.
Because ultimately, creating a more just and equitable world requires us to acknowledge those differences, to embrace the tapestry of human experience in all its complexity. That's what the speaker's story has shown us today.